Hello, I'm Rob Hirschfeld, CEO and co-founder of RackN. Welcome to the third demo for our cloud field day infrastructure. In this case, we're going to be showing how to scale infrastructure as code sites by talking about the collaboration pieces, GitOps and training and reuse. We're going to be doing this as a fictional bank that we've created to help explain it in character. So I will be playing the role of the platform engineering chief, helping onboard a new employee from one of our competitors. You came over from Bank of Cloud.
Came over from Bank of Cloud. I'm Shane Gibson. I'm a cloud architect here. Very excited to be working with RackN.
Excellent, Shane. I appreciate you coming in. I've seen some really interesting work that you've done in Terraform. You've been learning our Terraform system. You've been learning our Ansible systems. That's really great. But now I really want you to be able to take that work and share it with the team.
Okay, excellent. All right, so I would like to understand how to be able to work in a Git environment to allow the team to see the changes to the infrastructure as code that I'm making, and that we can revision that and track it. And conceivably, at some point, I'd like to be able to build a process by which we can have merge requests, pull requests, and approval process. So we have review of code before it goes into production, plus with the Git process that allows us to track commits and history and rollback if we need to.
Excellent.
So I want to know how to roll that up into modular units to be able to install that in the DRP endpoint.
Excellent. Well, you'll be glad to know that is actually how we run all of this infrastructure. Even this cluster that you're playing with is managed through a GitOps process.
Oh, excellent.
So you'll notice that all of the templates, so if you jump over to the templates where you were doing some work, it might have been subtle, but the two templates you worked on, see how they're unlocked where you can edit them? All the other ones have come from content packs, some of which are part of RackN's library and some of which are managed by us.
Okay, I see that this is locally managed, and so it's not in a content pack or a content bundle.
All right, well, let's get it into the shared repo. So can you grab one of those?
Yeah, so let's grab this.
Excellent. So we have a GitLab infrastructure already built.
Okay.
And it's BankN CFD 15. You can jump over to that. We'll look at that for a second.
So
excellent.
Here we are.
So in this repo, have you seen how RackN has helped build content?
Yeah, I saw this interesting thing, color demo, which I was looking at earlier. It's a sort of training thing that tells you how to bundle and manage content. Has some pretty easy instructions on how to do the upload and bundle creation process. The infrastructure's code components are pretty straightforward. They're just simple YAML. It's easy if, in this case, if I wanted to change a workflow, I can easily add another stage into it and expand it. And we'd obviously want to test that before we roll it out into production.
Cool. So if you jump back to that other repo, you will see that we already have this repo built and see it as that content directory.
Yeah, and I have cloned this already locally.
Excellent. Oh, so you already know what you're doing. So the next step would be, let's see what you've got checked out. So, okay, here it is. And there's the same content directory. Excellent.
So here's the content directory. And then here's some existing templates. So I assume I want to add a new template in here or something like that.
That's exactly right. Let's go.
All right, so I'm going to add a new file. I'm going to name it. And then I want to copy my template in here. So there's my Terraform template. And from here, it's unsaved. And if I recall correctly, I saw on the configuration, there was a webhook. Whoops. Webhook.
Exactly right. So we already built a webhook that transitions from this back into the endpoint that you're playing on.
Okay.
And so here, if you want to test it, we can actually watch what happens in the background.
I assume I want to test a push event.
Just a push like we're about to do.
Okay.
And so that then ran a push exercise. What's happening in the background is there is a webhook commit that's going to land in the Digital Rebar's webhook.
Okay.
That webhook fires a trigger. That trigger then pulls the files from Git, builds them, and then puts them back into the system. We can see that it did that if you go into the work orders you can actually see where that trigger was fired right up here.
DR server add content, that's the webhook. So this is the our system side catching that webhook.
Right. So just like everything else, there's a comprehensive job log where you can watch what happened with it. So now if you
so the GitLab integration is all part of the RackN solution. So the moment you fire up RackN on your environment, you're going to get a GitLab.
There is a list of
repo
trigger providers, pretty comprehensive list of providers that allow you to integrate a hook from GitLab or any of these providers into us, and we're always adding new webhook providers. Or you can set up a timer or a button that would then go and pull the Git in and do the same work without the trigger. It's the same backing task.
But it's all GitLab driven.
You're going to have to build the trigger based on the provider, but it's a pretty straightforward thing to do, if that makes sense, right? This is where orchestration is different. Orchestration is very much connective tissue, but it's unique for each company that does it. And so what we enable, there's actually a fair number of triggers now that we define out of the box, but where you're actually saying, oh, I want to land a webhook from someplace, you'll need to build a trigger for that.
So the differences in a lot of the parts and pieces that we provide is you have essentially it's like a provider in Terraform that confers an ability to interact with a service or a system. In this case, the trigger providers allow us to interact with different webhook services or other trigger services. And then you instantiate those by creating a trigger that has a configuration that uses that trigger provider. And similarly, we have plugins that confer extending capability of the core platform. So those are plugin providers. And to do that, for example, in bare metal environments, to talk to IPMI or Redfish protocols on baseboard management controllers and systems, we can add that in and then be able to have control over hardware through that out-of-band path that a lot of bare metal shops use. So there's a lot of different capabilities where we can flexibly extend the platform or flexibly extend the content capabilities on the system.
So in its base, let me explain GitOps to a 5-year-old. You're updating your stuff in VS Code, which is awesome. Thumbs up. But once you push that into your main repository, you used GitLab here, but I'm assuming you have other webhooks for like GitHub, Bitbucket, and things like that.
Yep.
That webhook creates a connective data link to RackN. And then based off of what that connection does, because that webhook is basically just saying, hey, there's been a merge.
Saying there's been a merge and it's providing a certain amount of data too. So,
Right.
So this is actually reading the data that's coming in as part of the webhook. That's right. We have a generic, I got a JSON blob webhook too. But in this case, these ones actually decompose the input a little bit more and then write it into parameters that we can use. So if you looked at this one, we actually merged the data that came in from the webhook into parameters and then pass those parameters into the task. So we're able to make very sophisticated operations based on the data coming from the webhook.
No, that's great because a big blob of data is great because you can write custom webhooks and custom triggers based off of that. And then
Absolutely.
this is good because it allows that data connection to then do exactly what you just said. Take that data and then kind of parameterize it to others.
So one of the things that we recognize with this is that you can use this to substitute the way people are sort of forcing Jenkins into DevOps roles. And you could, because it's all infrastructure as code, so you can define the triggers and the blueprints and the actions, then make them portable and reusable, and then define whatever hooks you need, and then cascade hooks through it. So when something gets created, you can do an event, things like that.
So let's just something very briefly that I've showed a few times here, and you may or may not have caught it, is all of the things on our platform are objects, and they're just JSON or YAML objects, everything. And so if you take a look at our interface and you look at the editor, it has this, shows you things, but ultimately you can look at the raw object itself, and we can toggle between JSON and YAML. But this shows you, especially if you're working with our platform and doing integration, it allows you to have a roadmap for some of the things that we've done already. And that cut and paste from Bank of Cloud that I did to BankN, it's kind of allowing you to encourage that to a degree.
Right. And we're showing you a lot of UX pieces. RackN is fundamentally an API-driven platform. So this is just a React app. It's driving the API in the background, and everything that you're doing is actually designed for machines to talk to machines first, and then people afterwards. Before the sad trombones sound, I do want to show how we train.
So then every parameter let's say, and that you're messing with becomes an object in the repo?
Yes.
Yes.
Both from a type definition, how to use that parameter, but also from a configuration definition point of what's the value of that parameter at a given time or a given place. There's a whole lot of story behind all of that, but they differentiate. And
So the
get used,
state
but-
as well as the parameter declaration,
Yes.
let's say.
Elements of state, especially configuration and bootstrapping.
Sitting in the repo.
Things like that.
It's sitting in the repo.
It's sitting in a repo, or in repos are modular. So it actually gets decomposed into different pieces. There's not like one massive thing. It's actually designed to be composed together and then have a dependency graph for those things together. I want to move into the lab piece.
Yep. I just want to save that.
Okay. So Shane, one of the things about delivering this code is that we don't consider backend, we don't consider anything delivered until it's also documented.
Yeah, I was looking at these lab systems, you guys, which have been a really useful resource for learning how to do new things in the system. But I was wondering if we can use that for documentation, for process. So when I have new engineers that come up underneath me, I don't have to spend a whole lot of time training them. I can point them at how our process and our procedure is customized on this platform.
Exactly right. And we started this because I knew that I wanted you to learn that process. We actually started building some BankN labs for our field to use. And you can see I've created one right there. And so in this, there's actually, this is a lab that we're going to start using as our first training module for teams that are onboarding. And you get to write it since you're the first person we're onboarding.
Yeah, I was going to say this was missing a lot of detail information. So I get to do this now.
Exactly.
Delegation.
So let's make it easy. If you've checked out that code, you already have access to this lab. It's in that same repository.
Okay.
Because everything here is still labs as code, documentation as code.
So this is the backing
Markdown or it's YAML? It's YAML.
It is YAML with rich text.
enriched with Markdown or RST formatting.
So go ahead and make some changes. Show you how to do it. Excellent. And save it. And this is VS Code, so there's actually a hook built in that's going to automatically push this as a test back into that endpoint.
Is there a digital rebar linter for
We had to do
VS Code?
There is a rebar linter for parts of our code. The labs definitely have a linter, and so it'll tell you if you're doing labs correctly or not. If you're not getting that, let's just move forward because we have 1 minute to wrap.
All right.
So in this case, we're actually able to write and add new labs. It's an important feature. We expect our customers have been asking us to be able to build their own runbooks. And then the labs have a feature that let you navigate within the UX as you do it. So you can mark up, go to this page, that link actually will take you to the right place in the system. And so it makes it very easy, not just for training, but for diagnostic runbooks or onboarding or self-service modules to include that into the system, disable the RackN labs and have a production set of instructions for customers. With that, thank you for participating. We hope you've enjoyed these demos. We're just scratching the surface with what we can do. Obviously, we don't have as much time as we want. I would encourage you to come in and learn for yourself. We work really hard to make this easy. The labs feature we're showing is built into the product, and you can train yourself. Just visit rackn.com/trial and download and install Digital Rebar.